Well, hello, and welcome to another of my monologues. I'm sitting here filling my pipe. You can't quite see what I'm doing here, but I am filling my pipe this morning. I want to talk today about a subject which I suppose is not one of my normal subjects, although it is actually contains information which could be of use to people. I don't know. And it's about books, or at least my book. I've hinted, I suppose, over the last few months that I am writing a book, and I have been writing a book, and we'll get onto that in a second. Now, I don't suppose that this video will garner very many views because I'm not shocking you. I'm not telling you about some terrible news that's coming. I'm not frightening you. I'm not making you dive under the covers. And all of that, which so many other channels do. I don't see the need anymore, unless you're absolutely new here for the very first time, and you don't know what's going on in the world. We are continually just scaring ourselves, aren't we? And that's what they want. They want us to be in fear. They want us to be frightened, and so it does seem to me a shame that many of the channels that I have a lot of respect for are still basically frightening people. Instead of coming up with solutions or reporting on people who are doing solutions, it does, or even putting forward a vision of the future, a good, positive, healthy vision. It seems to me that they're still just scaring people witless with what's going on or the latest bit of government nonsense and this, that and the other. I know I've done that in the past, and occasionally I have to put something out so that it does feel like I'm relevant, but more and more I feel I'm irrelevant because everybody just wants to be scared. They want to keep looking over their shoulder at the monster running to them rather than to the beautiful pastures new. And that's a shame. That's a shame. Anyway, right, I've got my pipe going, more or less. And just to let you know that if you're interested in my pipe smoking channel, which is on the Vogue show, it's in the description down the bottom. I talk about this wonderful cabinet that was given to me and a new pipe. Anyway, I want to talk about something else today. I want to talk about this. This is my book. Just trying to get myself organised in this chair. This is my book called Biggleswick, The Town That Wouldn't Comply. And it came about, I suppose, 18 months ago, possibly 2 years ago now, after I made a video which was an allegory about a town that I said, what would happen? I mean, basically the upshot is, what would happen if a town said, the people in the town, the majority of the people just turned around and said to their council, do you know what? You're a bunch of idiots. You're pushing stuff that people don't want, the net zero policies. You know, you're pushing the myth that global warming is a truism. You're pushing us to have 20-mile-an-hour zones. Now, am I right in thinking, I saw a video that somebody put up, and I don't know whether that was just fanciful thinking, that the High Court has ruled that 20-mile-an-hour zones is illegal and that they've got to now reverse all of that. Then I saw another one that said, what was it, 50-mile cities, now you can travel within a 50-mile radius or 50-minute radius of your town, you know. And I thought, and it was just pointed out to me, and I returned the thing saying, oh, it's funny, it used to be 15-minute, now it's 50 minutes. Soon you'll be able to travel around within 24 hours. You know, they're losing, basically, the dark forces who've been putting all these things. Now it's gone to 50 minutes. Well, soon it'll be 24 hours. Soon it'll be you can travel within a week. And then eventually, of course, it'll go back to where you can travel down wherever you like, because we've lost. And that seems to make perfect sense to me. I mean, why we put up with any of their nonsense if any of it's non-beneficial to us, why are we listening? We know that they've been using nefarious methods to control us, and that they're all quite nasty people. Anyway, so I had this idea 2 years ago, Biggleswick, and in an allegory, it's quite easy just to come up with the idea, you know, say, well, what would happen if everybody just turned their back on the council? What if they said, no, we don't want any of this nonsense? And of course, you can put it like that, but how would that actually come about? We have a population who are so divided and have opinions in so many different scattered ways at the moment. We know that if we could unite people, we can conquer all of this. But managing to get people of differing opinions to even listen to each other at the moment seems to be the biggest headache that we have. And unless we can do that, and people go, yeah, I accept that that's what you think, but I disagree with that, and we can stay within the parameters of friendliness, let's say, rather than going, oh, do you think that? You're an idiot, which is what we seem to have at the moment. Or even worse, people would say, well, you think that? I'll punch you in the face. You're not allowed to think that. You mustn't have your own independent thoughts. No, 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 it's mainstream media thinking or nothing at all, mate. That's where we are. We've got to move out of that, because otherwise we'll never improve anything. And after all, I think intrinsically deep in our hearts, we all know what the damn problem is, and it's those people that sit in the House of Commons trying to rule all of us. Anyway, so I decided I would write the book, which has been so far 10 months. I think it's about 10 months of writing, thinking, how would you get a town, an ordinary market town of, say, between 20 and 30,000 people, to come together and reject all those policies that nobody's ever asked for, the 5G, the low traffic neighbourhood, the surveillance cameras, the corporate takeover, the sexualisation of schools, the fluoridation of the water, you know, all these sort of subjects that we often talk about, which in and of itself, you would think that most people would be happy to say, I don't want that rubbish. I don't want to be radiated in my beds. I don't want my children going to school being taught at 5 or 6 how to masturbate. I just don't think that. And you'd think ordinary people would be up in arms. I don't want to be tested like some lab rat, to have some nasty injection shoved into my arm that turns out wasn't actually as helpful as everybody said it was, and now we're all finding people left, right and centre are injured or dying. You'd think that in an ordinary and everyday society of intelligent people, that this would be rejected out of hand straight away, but it does seem that actually people are dumb, and they can't see, they can't use critical thinking, and they can't use common sense, and so we are where we are, because we've been divided and conquered. And so when you come up with an idea, which in and of itself seems quite reasonable, that you would just turn around and say to the council, sorry, we don't want any of this. By the way, we've discovered that all your council tax stuff is fraudulent anyway. The judges don't sign it. The courts are fake. They're not even in real courts. The courts seem to be colluding with you. All of this. So how do you do it? How do you get them all to come together? And that's what I had to try and come up with. And there are a few things in here. Of course, you're playing God to a certain degree as the author. So I had to sort of put into place a number of things which would enable, I suppose, people to see a vision of the future. Because this is one of the other things that does seem to worry me, is that we're all the time saying we don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want the other. And you think, well, what do you do? What do you want? What do you want from life? What is it that you're born into this incredible existence with bodies that are amazing, that can be trained to do incredible and just beautiful things. And when you look into walk down into the town, as I mentioned so many times on my videos, and you see people who are overweight, they've got stiff backs, they've got gammy legs, they've got problems, they look down and depressed, they dress drably, they don't seem to have any self-respect, they don't seem to want to engage in anything, they don't want to pull themselves out of the slump. And you think, we're here on this world in which we've got this plethora of natural resources, and we have this incredibly amazing body that can do so wonderful things, and yet people just sit on the couch, they watch a bit of television, they watch all these other things, they're just disengaged. Their brain, which is incredible and connected to the source and can have inspiration, they just don't bother. And you think, bloody hell, you know, you have, each one of us has such amazing opportunities. If only we got together and said, no, we don't want all this rubbish that the government are pushing over us. We're here to enjoy this incredible life and thrive and learn and you know, raise our potential and spend time perhaps in silence and contemplate and be with our maker at the same time, and then later, you know, develop something and help one another and be smiling and having fun and singing songs around the piano, and you know, and just instead of being in ghettos stuck behind screens in which we're not communicating, we're not raising our vibrations, we're not engaging with one another, we're not thriving. And that seems to be where we are. You know, we've allowed the governments to shut the pubs, shut down the youth centres, get rid of local radio and local newspapers that kept the community together, and those local events that we used to have here where I am, a carnival, and people used to get together and be part of that carnival and celebrate things, you know. And now, no, we can't do that. You can't do any celebration. You can't have fun. The council's not there to help you do the things that you want. It's just there continually to hinder you, act as a mafiosi. Come round. If you don't pay us your sodding money, we're going to bash your door down and take your property. Bastards, absolute bastards. And yet somehow we've allowed that to happen where we don't seem to want to stop it. And people going, oh, but what can you do? And they moan and become, you know, so lily-livered and pathetic. And you think, is that really what this existence is about? Is that really what we're here to be? To allow certain people who want to take all the money and all the power and everything else and make us all as little livy-lillard, oh, I mustn't upset anybody, I mustn't do this. Anyway, so I had to think about all of this, and my book Biggleswick really is about the town that wouldn't comply. It slowly but surely they come together and they realise there's a lot of bad stuff going on, and actually they're not going to put up with it. Why should they? Why should you? And so this is a story of for everyone, really. There are home truths in it. There are bits about the legal fiction and the name. There is about the masturbation being taught in schools. It shows you about the chemtrails going on, and the fraudulent nature of the council tax. It is nearly ready, and the cover is, I don't know what to do with the cover. I'm not a publisher, you see. I'm not a publisher. I just wanted to write a book. I'm not saying it's well written, and there may well be spelling mistakes or whatever. And Julia and I have done our best with it, and I'll get some proofreaders to do it. And I know a couple of people have offered to be an editor, but I need to get this out. In fact, somebody suggested I talk to a publisher about it, and they were sort of saying, well, I'd be interested in reading it, but then that takes a year or so. The process just takes so flipping long, and people need to be thinking about how we could possibly move forward now, not in a year's time, now. And so it is a novel, but through a novel, through the story of different characters, and I hope I've drawn them up reasonably well. I'm not saying this is a, you know, this is your work of fiction. I'm no Dickens, but I'm trying, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed thinking about the process and coming up with ideas and solutions, and how it might work and how it could work. Because the key is to unite people, and I think the key is to demonstrate to people the kind of life they really could have, rather than just pushing back against the lives that they've been given. Because unless people's aspirations are raised, unless people have a connection to some form of spirituality, and I don't mean a church necessarily, and I don't mean meditating necessarily, although you could do, but I mean that they're part of a community with spirit, with an understanding of who and what they are, that things are possible, that they have a positive outlook, that they're there to look out for each other and help each other rather than hinder. Yes, there's always going to be bad apples, of course. To push back against narratives that are not helpful, such as with the NHS, the National Health Service, public enemy number one, as I like to call them, because they seem to be quite happy to be in bed with the pharmaceutical companies who just want to sell you pills and keep you ill, and not really have anything to do with making you better, because a well patient will bankrupt them. And so what's the alternative? People want remedies. They don't want to be managed and continually, as is so many of these things, be on a subscription to little white pills, and more of them, until they have no idea what they're taking, but they take them each month and they pay for them, and somebody else is getting richer on their decline. So that's what it's about. I thought I'd just tell you a bit about it. I'm hoping that, but really in a month's time, it will be ready. I've got to finish some more bits. It's pretty much there. And then it'll be proofread and what have you, and then it'll be published. Biggleswick, the town that wouldn't comply. And I hope it's of interest. It may not be. Anyway, thank you for watching, if you did. And if you didn't, well, I'm sorry about that. Until next time, goodbye.